Well, last night at about 7 o'clock, we had our next Bible trivia question that we sent out. It's called, and the question was, I am the prophet who prophesied that Jesus would be betrayed for 30 pieces of silver. Who am I? And I love it. We have our first bit of controversy over a Bible trivia question. As you noted, as some of you noted in your answers, it's true that Matthew 27 really talks about two Old Testament prophecies. And when you look at them, one of them more clearly says what the prophecy is. But so the purest answer, I guess, to that is who am I is Zechariah. But the other one that is alluded to in Matthew 27 is Jeremiah. So that gives us three winners, two from our church and one that was a member here for a long time and now lives a bit north of us. So we have congratulations to Misty and to Melva, as well as to Heidi Watt. And so congratulations to the three of you on looking this up and figuring it out. We're going to play again Sunday. I hope that you will be a part of that worship as well. Today, I want to update you on some things that are going on within our church community. I received a nice picture of the inside of a church building showing all the pews with nobody in them. And then the caption says, "The church isn't empty. The church has been deployed." How true. Thank you for sending me that. Let me catch you up on Hope Restored. It's getting close. As you know, this year we're doing it very differently. We're not doing it all in one weekend with hundreds of people gathering. We're doing it in bits and pieces. And the house is getting close to being completed. For the ones that have worked so diligently, thank you. Thank you. It's amazing what you're doing out there at the Hope Restored house. We still need people who can caulk and paint. We need people who can clean on the interior of the house as we near the completion. So please contact our church office about that, or you can text me or you can text Verna about that information. Food for Kids. This good ministry is continuing every Friday. We have enough food on hand for this week. If you want to donate food for next week, please do that. We need items like canned soup, canned meals like chili or spaghetti, mac and cheese, ramen noodles, or oatmeal or other non-perishable breakfast foods. And we thank you for the donations that you've made already. Also, we have a few members that are struggling with health issues. We ask you to be in prayer for them, for anybody that you're aware of that needs our prayers. I ask you to call or text each other daily. Let's stay in touch until we can meet again. I mentioned to you Sunday that we're asking you to stop at 8:30 each evening to pray together. So this is a reminder to do just that. I encourage you to call or text your friends, other people that you're maybe just be on your heart. I had that happen to me this morning. A friend from Arkansas gave me a call just to see how I was doing, and I appreciated his call so much. Please call those you're thinking of, and then at 8:30 at night, pray for them. Several of you have asked about, do I know any more about this Ruby Bridges Hall story that I started to read to you yesterday? So yes, I do know the rest of that story. I want to read to you that part as she ends her story about this event in her life. Here's what she said. Another person who helped me was Dr. Robert Coles, a child psychiatrist who happened to see me being escorted through the crowd outside my school. Dr. Coles volunteered to work with me through this ordeal. Soon he was coming to our house every week to talk with me about how I was doing in school. Really, I was doing fine. I was always with people who wanted the best for me, my family, my friends, and in school, my teacher. The more time I spent with Mrs. Henry, the more I grew to love her. I wanted to be like her. Soon, without realizing it, I had picked up on her Boston accent. Neither of us missed a single day of school that year. The crowd outside dwindled to just a few protesters, and before I knew it, it was June. For me, first grade ended much more quietly than it began. I said goodbye to Mrs. Henry, fully expecting her to be my teacher again in the fall. But when I went back to school in September, everything was different. There were no marshals, no protesters. There were other kids, even some other black students in my second grade class, and Mrs. Henry was gone. I was devastated. Years later, I found out that she hadn't been invited to return to William France. She and her husband had moved back to Boston. It was almost as if that first year of school integration had never happened. No one talked about it. Everyone seemed to have put that difficult time behind them. After a while, I did the same. I finished grade school at William France and graduated from an integrated high school, went to business school and studied travel and tourism. For 15 years, I worked as a travel agent. Eventually, I married and threw myself into raising 4 sons in the city I grew up in. I didn't give much thought to the events of my childhood until my younger brother died in 1993. For a time, I looked after his daughters. They happened to be students at William France. And when I took them there every morning, I was literally walking into my past, into the same school that I'd helped integrate years earlier. I began volunteering 3 days a week at William France, working as a liaison between parents and the school. Still, I had the feeling God had brought me back in touch with my past for something beyond that. I struggled with it for a while. Finally, I got on my knees and prayed, Lord, whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing, you'll have to show me. Not long after that, a reporter called the school. Psychiatrist Robert Coles had written a children's book, The Story of Ruby Bridges. Now everyone wanted to know what had happened to the little girl in the famous Norman Rockwell painting that had appeared on Look magazine. No one expected to find me back at William France. Dr. Coles had often written about me, but this was the first book intended for children. To me, it was God's way of keeping my story alive until I was able to tell it myself. One of the best parts of the story is that I finally reunited with my favorite teacher, Barbara Henry. She reached me through the publisher of Dr. Coles' book, and in 1995, we saw each other in person for the first time in more than 3 decades. The second she laid eyes on me, she cried, Ruby Nell. No one had called me that since I was a little girl. Then we were hugging each other just like we used to every morning in the first grade. I didn't realize how much I had picked up from Mrs. Henry. I still can't have a hard time calling her anything else. Not only her Boston accent, but her mannerisms too, such as how she tilts her head and gestures with her hands when she talks. She showed me a tiny dog-eared photo of me with my front teeth missing that she'd kept all these years. I used to look at this picture and wonder how you were, she said. I told my kids about you so often. You're like part of the family. We've stayed a part of each other's lives ever since. Turns out that because of what I went through on the front lines of the battle for school integration, people recognize my name and are eager to hear what I would have to say about racism and education today. I speak to groups around the country, and when I visit schools, Mrs. Henry often comes with me. We tell kids our story, talk about the lessons of the past and how we can still learn from them today, especially that every child is a unique human being fashioned by God. I just think that's the neatest story. I want to encourage you as you live through this whole ordeal of the coronavirus and all of the ramifications of this terrible pandemic. Don't lose sight of what you're going through right now. Don't just go through it. Recognize the purpose that God can have for you in a time like this, so that later on, you've been doing something worthwhile. You've been taking care of others. I want to encourage you to log in this Sunday morning at 10 o'clock for our virtual worship. I can't wait to see you again in the same room very soon. See you.